Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah, the lovely Leah, and Michelle.
The lovely Michelle.
But that doesn't... That's
the
not...
magnificent Michelle. The moving Michelle.
You have to... the moving?
The marvelous Michelle.
The alliteration.
Yeah, my computer's covered with little black hairs.
So...
It's going to be a great episode.
Today is the 16th of August. It's a Friday. It's our weekly roundup.
And I couldn't fit that in the title. You guys have been missing us with the whiny dogs in the background, so we have one for you tonight.
We do have a whiny dog.
We have Holly here tonight
Hi,
with
Holly.
us to whine us through the night.
Holly,
Holly, Holly, Holly, Holly.
There you go. She doesn't catch. She's one of those dogs that you see. It's like, yeah. Okay. So we have some cool stories tonight to show you. I think... Okay, cool is not the right word. Let me rephrase that.
Sex trafficking, cool.
To me, it's cool that it's being exposed. Finally, this is actually really, really good news. So that's the cool part. The fact that it's happening is not cool.
Yeah,
not cool.
Not cool. Not cool. While everybody's showing up, who wants to see the lines lining up last night for the New Hampshire Trump rally?
Aww,
New Hampshire.
That's pretty amazing.
The state the size of your smallest city. To get this many people for Trump rally is pretty good.
I think it's awesome. Look at all those lovely, happy, kind, not racist people. How about that?
Those are black people, white people, Hispanic people, all kind of people. So speaking about the Trump rally, Trump had a nice thing to say. He said this.
Look at all those lovely...
You know what? We're going to make it louder. Here we go. Are we on? I think
we are on. Whoa. It's on.
I love our country. I'm the president of the United States of America. I'm not the president of the world. And as long as I'm president, America will never bow to a foreign nation like we were for so many years.
So I like that. I'm president of the America, of the United States.
You have dog hair all over you.
Oh my gosh. I told
Holly is a black dog. We're not racist. We have a black dog. Right?
Where's one of them rolly things when you need one?
They can't see it.
You know what I'm talking about, guys? Speaking about president of the world, today we woke up to the biggest news on Twitter is that Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who we can now finally pronounce, I believe, correctly, have been denied entry to Israel after being... They wanted to go to Israel because they wanted to shout from the Temple Mount that Israel was a horrible, awful place, and to promote the BDS, which is the Boycott, Divestments, and Sanctions of Israel. And Rashida Tlaib's family has family in Palestine, or the state of Palestine, the territory of Palestine, whatever you want to call it. Michelle and I were trying to discuss it, and I'm going to try to break some of that down for you so you can understand what's going on in the Middle East. I know a lot of people think that it cannot be resolved, and I don't believe in this lifetime it will be resolved, but that's just my optimism at play. So Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib partnered with vicious anti-Semites to plan their trip to Israel. This is really, really important. Let's see.
I'm sharing this on all of my social media pages. Would you like to, too?
So, first of all, did you guys know that they co-sponsored or signed on to a bill they wanted to get all of America to boycott Israel? The whole boycott. Yeah, that was, they wanted to make a congressional thing to boycott Israel.
They do know that we are Israel's biggest ally, right?
That's their problem. Right. They have a problem with that.
Okay.
Let's see. The most important element of the story is the fact that two American congresswomen shunned bipartisan congressional delegation to Israel. There was a bipartisan congressional delegation to Israel recently. They did not go to that. They wanted their own, to go on an independent trip to Israel, sponsored by vicious anti-Semites. Another important element of the story is that, as of today, the mainstream media have whitewashed Ilham Omar and Tlaib's vile associations. Writing yesterday, the Washington Post said that Omar and Tlaib's trip to Jerusalem and the West Bank was planned by Miftah, a non-profit organization headed by Palestinian lawmaker and longtime peace negotiator Hannah Ashrawi. The New York Times described it as an organization headed by a longtime Palestinian lawmaker. In its editorial, the New York Times editorial board identified it as a group that promotes global awareness and knowledge of Palestinian realities. This from the National Review, who I usually don't read right now, but they have a good article on this. This is a whitewash thanks to a Twitter thread from the Washington Examiner Seth Mandel, who pointed to multiple additional sources. You can peel off the onions of this evil layer of anti-Semitism. First, the group actually published, get this, blood libel. And I was reading this, I was like, blood libel? What the heck? Posting an article that accused the Jews of using the blood of Christians in the Jewish Passover.
You're kidding. What? That doesn't even make any sense.
This is the group.
You're kidding.
That is sponsoring Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib to come over.
Wow.
When pro-Israel bloggers condemned the article, Miftah first claimed that the attacks against the peace were part of a smear campaign.
Let me see.
Then minimized the reference to blood libel as merely briefly addressed. It was
the
just
last one.
No, it's not. You have a whole
Yes,
bag of them.
it is.
It was just a light sprinkling of blood libel. Move along. Nothing to see here. The organization later issued a more complete apology, but we've barely gotten started with this vile group. It also published an American neo-Nazi treatise called Who Rules America? The alien grip on our news and entertainment media must be broken. As Vox's Jane Coaston explained, the original source was National Vanguard, a neo-Nazi group founded in 2005 in Charlottesville by members of the National Alliance. The National Alliance was for a time the best financed and best organized white nationalist group in America. And to give you a sense of its ideology, here are a couple paragraphs. The Jew-controlled entertainment media have taken the lead in persuading a whole generation.
You mean the Chinese-controlled? Carry on.
No. Here, from the people who say that America is full of white supremacy, sponsored by a group that put out an article by literal neo-Nazis.
Oh my gosh.
Follow that for a minute.
Mm-mm.
They're literally neo-Nazis. So it talks about homosexuality. There's nothing at all wrong with white women dating or marrying black men, or with white men marrying Asian men. So anyways, it goes on to be really racist.
I don't know where the other bag went.
That's not all, not by a long shot. The group celebrates terrorists, including an evil woman who helped murder 13 Israeli children. In an article titled Let's Honor Our Own, a Miftah contributor describes Dali al-Mughrabi as a Palestinian fighter who was killed during a military operation against Israel in 1978, and is one of the Palestinian people's national heroes. The so-called military operation is more widely known as the Coastal Road Massacre, a bus hijacking that resulted in the deaths of 38 Israeli civilians, including 13 children. So they're apologists for terrorists. And the founder of Miftah herself, Miss Ashrawi, excused jihadist violence by telling an interviewer that you cannot somehow adopt the language of either the international community or the occupier by describing anybody who resists as a terrorist. And of course, Miftah published an article asking whether Israel was a proper homeland for the Jewish people. Under the heading, Is Israel the Only Possible Homeland for Jews?, this article questioning the appropriateness of Israel as the location of a Jewish homeland was posted by Miftah, one of the sponsors of the proposed Tlaib Omar visit to Israel. You can keep going, but the evidence should be sufficient to, they're all just a bunch of crazy anti-Semites.
So David Harrell on YouTube says, Israel, showing true anti-free speech colors, proving Omar and Tlaib's very point. Here's the problem.
No, let me explain. No, I need to
explain.
Let me explain.
Let me explain my point. Thank you. That's so nice of you. Okay. Isn't that so sisterly of her? Do you know one of the women in our Pilates class who watched my show asked who the lady was that I was filming with? I was like, that's my sister. So maybe there are people watching here that don't quite understand the dynamic of sisters and that we are, okay, and we're allowed to say those sorts of things. But my point is, there is quite a difference, young man, middle-aged man, old man, whatever you are, between free speech and wishing an entire state to be dismantled and also wishing harm to it. This is not free speech. You don't get to go into a nation that you wish doesn't exist and you wish to harm it.
So what I was going to say was that Israel actually has a law on the books, like a literal law that says, if you support the BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, then you can't come into the country.
Because it's dangerous. These people are not just, it's not just free speech.
This is a place in conflict that could explode at any time.
So so from an American history standpoint, did you know that burning the American flag is not actually protected under free speech? Talking about it, wishing that you could, not liking the country is protected under free speech. But the action itself, once you take an action against the United States, this is an action. To burn the flag is not actually historically and constitutionally protected under free speech.
Interesting.
And so when we're talking about this, if Israel already has a law on the books, they've already proven that this group is trying to take action against Israel.
Right,
and once
exactly.
you become part of this group, that's not free speech. Do you realize that after World War II, you weren't allowed to be a communist here in the United States? They went after Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, because they had communist ties. There are times when a group wishes harm to a country, to a state, in which you're not allowed to be there if you're part of the group that wishes harm to it. That's not free speech. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so here's the thing. Israeli law actually required them to bar them. And not every country allows everybody in. Okay? Israel bars entry to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. This morning, Israeli outlets reported that Representative Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib would be barred from entering Israel, reportedly due to their suspected provocations and promotions of BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Initiative, which targets the Middle East's only democracy. President Trump indicated his support for Israel's actions, arguing that it would show great weakness if Israel allowed the congresswomen to visit. A number of prominent progressives criticized Israel's decision. Jennifer Rubin, a left-wing blogger at the Washington Post, argued that Israel was in the wrong, as weak, fearful countries don't allow critics in. Dan Shapiro, an ambassador to Israel under President Obama, suggested that Israel's volte-face makes little sense and that it would harm Israel's standing in America and boost BDS. Others questioned whether Israel's reversal was flippant. Politico's Jake Sherman suggested that the Israeli government had undermined Ron Dermer, their ambassador to the United States, wondering how Dermer could publicly voice something that ended up being so wrong. The progressives are in the wrong, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump are in the right. Israeli law mandates that Omar and Tlaib be barred from entering, and given that their itinerary provides no indication of any desire to talk with Israeli government and understand their perspective, there's little reason to make an exception for the congresswomen. These women were going, and literally, did you know this? Their itinerary said Palestine, destination Palestine, not Israel. They had no intention of meeting with any Israeli government officials, and Israel's supposed to let them in. Really? If Tlaib and Omar are going to push a boycott on one of America's most important allies, they shouldn't be surprised when they are boycotted themselves.
Oh, turnabout is
Israeli law requires Israel's interior minister to bar foreign nationals who knowingly issued a public call to boycott the state of Israel or have pledged to participate in the said boycott. Both Omar and Tlaib publicly support the BDS movement. Under Israeli law, they are likely categorically barred from entering Israel. There are no special exceptions within the law for politicians. Despite this mandate from the Knesset, the Israeli government was planning to allow Omar and Tlaib to enter. They were going to be allowed to enter. Ambassador Dermer stated last month that out of respect for the U.S. Congress and the great alliance between Israel and America, we would not deny entry to any member of Congress into Israel. But that decision was made before Omar Tlaib's itinerary became public.
Uh-oh.
According to a report from the Washington Post, the pair plan to visit East Jerusalem, which is the Arab portion of Jerusalem, Ramallah, Bethlehem, and Hebron, all cities under Palestinian control. They had also refrained from scheduling any official meetings with the Israeli government. The itinerary suggests that they are not coming to build bridges with the Israeli government. Rather, it suggests they were initiating it to act as provocateurs. Under those circumstances, the Netanyahu government is right to reverse its decision and comply with the wishes of the Knesset. Democrats might try to frame Israel's decision as a rebuke to the United States. It's nothing of the sort. It would be one thing if Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib were heads of state or were broadly popular. They're not. They're not. Omar, for her part, has a 9% approval rate among swing state voters. There's a reason for their unpopularity. Their politics are perhaps the most sectarian of any members of Congress in recent memory. Moreover, their promotion of BDS does not represent the will of the American people. Last month, the House passed a bill opposing BDS by an overwhelming vote of 398 to 17, with Omar and Tlaib among the dissenters. While a state representative, Omar sought clemency for 9 Somali American men who had been convicted of trying to provide assistance to ISIS. Prior to being a state representative, she accused Israel of hypnotizing the world, playing on a classic anti-Semitic trope. And most recently, she impugned the integrity of Republican Congress members, leveraging another anti-Semitic trope, suggesting that their support of Israel was all about the Benjamins. Tlaib similarly has a fraught history with anti-Semitism. Tlaib contributed to an editorial to Louis Farrakhan's periodical Final Call. Farrakhan has been a notorious anti-Semite, and like Representative Omar, she similarly accused congressional representatives of dual loyalty, suggesting that they forgot what country they represent. She is the one. They both feel like they are representatives first to Palestine and to whatever Muslim country that they feel needs their. But both of them, interestingly enough, I understand Tlaib's because her family's from Palestine. But Omar is a Somali refugee to Kenya who was granted a spot here in the United States, but probably illegally, and her last name is probably not Omar, and she probably married her brother. So there's a lot of nefarious things going on there. Tlaib has publicly admitted to supporting a one-state solution in Israel, one state meaning a Palestinian majority, and that would likely govern Israel, and likely dismantle the world's only Jewish state. And last week, Tlaib aggressively claimed to the defense of Hamas, after Jake Tapper rightly compared their rhetoric to the rhetoric of right nationalists. Even if Israeli law did not mandate that Omar and Tlaib be barred for their support of BDS, their other extreme views and actions are perfectly sound reasons for Israel to bar them from entry. So there's a lot to this, but Israel has a right to exist. Israel is a Jewish state and has a right to exist. And there really isn't a middle ground here. You either believe that Israel has a right to exist, and then you can call out ways in which you feel that Israel is making mistakes. But the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, at this point, they pay the family of terrorists. And the world looks the other way and says, yeah, well, they're freedom fighters. So, freedom fighters can go into a cafe and blow it up and kill people on a bus. I don't have a lot of patience for that.
So, here's the thing. Hong Kong. If they start blowing up innocent civilians to make their point, we will not be supporting what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, here's my question, Leah. In Germany, if you say something against somebody of the LGBT community online or even to their face or whatever, you can be fined, you can be jailed, and you can lose your job. Okay? You're not going to be exported from the country, but that may come. Just for saying something against someone, just by maybe even misgendering someone, right? These things can happen. So I'm really confused why it's okay for that to happen in Germany and in the UK and Sweden. And yet in Israel, they don't have the right to say, if you have hate speech that consists of killing, you know, your ultimate intent is that we should all die and not be here. If you hate us that much and you want to take over our country and kick us all out, that speech is totally fine and acceptable, and Israel should just be okay with that. Why is that acceptable and not considered hate speech?
So Trump has made some comments earlier today, but this was just 19 minutes ago after we went live. Israel was very respectful and nice to Representative Rashida Tlaib, allowing her permission. They wrote and said, you can come and visit your grandma if you promise not to promote BDS, even after she has promoted the BDS.
Right.
She wrote a letter and said, Representative Tlaib wrote a letter and say, I want to come to Palestine. I want to pick figs with my 90-year-old grandmother. I will not promote any boycotts or anything.
Okay.
So they relented. The Israeli government relented and said, okay, as long as you promise not to do that, you can come. So then she says, I can't do that. I'm not visiting my grandma. Which means she obviously didn't want to go visit her grandma.
Right. She had ulterior motives.
She's a liar. Liar. So Israel was very respectful and nice to Representative Rashida Tlaib, allowing her permission to visit her grandmother. As soon as she was granted permission, she grandstanded and loudly proclaimed she would not visit Israel. Could this possibly have been a setup? Israel acted appropriately. Representative Tlaib wrote a letter to Israeli officials desperately wanting to visit her grandmother. Permission was quickly granted, whereupon Tlaib obnoxiously turned down the approval down, a complete setup. The only real winner here is Tlaib's grandmother. She doesn't have to see her now.
Oh, jeez. Well, yeah, okay.
Can you believe that Trump said that?
Trump. Yeah, that's how I feel.
That's crazy. Oh my
gosh.
Let me see. I want to get there's a timeline here from the Prime Minister of Israel, just to kind of get their take on it all. There's a whole thread I want to get to. They're really trying to explain this to people because it's pretty crazy. Okay, so here we go. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. No country in the world respects America and the American Congress more than the state of Israel. As a free and vibrant democracy, Israel is open to critics and criticism. With one exception, Israeli law prohibits the entry into Israel of those who call for and work to impose boycotts on Israel, as do other democracies that prohibit the entry of people who seek to harm the country.
Duh.
In fact, did you guys know this? That if you travel just to Israel, you're warned that your travel to Israel can bar you from going to any other country. So not any other country, but to a handful of countries that say if you've traveled to Israel, you can't come here.
Wow, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and if you're an Israeli citizen, you're barred from a lot of countries.
So are we talking about the religion shall not be named
Absolutely.
countries? So
Yes.
like if someone like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib that's been there, they still can't go either? If you just literally have ever been?
Probably
an exception there.
Muslims. Yeah. All right. In fact, in the past, the U.S. did this to an Israeli member of the Knesset as well as to other public figures from around the world. So the U.S. has actually not allowed people in. Congresswoman Tlaib
say that.
Knesset is how you whatever. Congresswoman Tlaib and Omar are leading activists in promoting the legislation of boycotts.
I think it would just be Knesset.
Okay. Against Israel in the American Congress. Only a few days ago, we received their itinerary for their visit to Israel, which revealed that they plan a visit whose sole objective is to strengthen the boycott against us and to deny Israel's legitimacy. For instance, they listed the destination of their trip as Palestine and not Israel. And unlike all Democrat and Republican members of Congress who have visited Israel, they did not request to meet any Israeli officials, either from the government or the opposition. A week ago, Israel warmly welcomed some 70 Democrat and Republican members of Congress who expressed broad bipartisan support for Israel, which was also demonstrated a month ago in a resounding bipartisan vote against BDS in Congress. However, the itinerary of the two congresswomen reveals that the sole purpose of their visit is to harm Israel and increase incitement against it. In addition, the organization that is funding their trip is Miftah, which is an avid supporter of BDS, and among those members are those who have expressed support for terrorism against Israel. Therefore, the Minister of the Interior has decided not to allow their visit, and I, as Prime Minister, support this decision. Nevertheless, if Congresswoman Tlaib submits a humanitarian request to visit her relatives, the Minister of the Interior has announced that he will consider her request on the condition that she pledges not to act to promote boycotts against Israel during her visit.
It's Knesset.
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 Awesome.
There's
There
no
you go.
S before the N.
Okay. Thank you for making that clear for everyone.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that. That's definitely taken care of now.
Well, there is a disparity between the way that I looked it up, Knesset, and Al Park says it's Knesset. But I think that might be like tomato, but Kisnet is not. That's not it.
Yeah, there was another article I had here, but I have to find it. Okay, so yeah, that's what's going on with Rashida Tlaib and Israel.
Okay, you're literally not getting any more because you've already had about 20, literally.
Got to bring out her leash because she's got to go.
No, she doesn't need to go. She just wants more treats.
All right,
Jonna says, I love my president. He says exactly what I was thinking.
So while you're here, I'm going to play this little video here on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because it's really, really, really complicated. Okay, we think of Israel as being a nation in 1948. They were actually Jews were trying to make Israel a Jewish state in the early 1900s.
Yes.
And you had the Balfour Declaration and
they called it Zionism back then.
To the Palestinians, I wouldn't say credit, but in their corner, there is no reason that the colonialism of the British mandate, British government should ever have been controlling that area at all.
Right.
But there were colonialism, and they went to India, and they,
look at that. Thank you.
And there's no reason for it to have been actually a British thing. And so if in 1948 they created the Israeli state because of the Holocaust, would be one thing. But the Balfour Declaration actually had the British kind of dividing up Palestine between the native Palestinians and religious Jews, and with Jerusalem being a very hot topic. Now, my view is this: Israel is the state of Israel is Jewish. The Ottoman Turks had, you have people that take over land, right? So to say that Israel in 1967 shouldn't have taken land during the war, well, the Ottoman Turks shouldn't have taken it anyways. And then the British shouldn't have taken it. And then
how far back do we go?
And how far back do we go? And that's the question right now. At some point, it's in Israeli hands now. Sorry. Okay? Sorry. And I say that because not all of the Arabs and the Palestinians were kicked out. They were given a chance to stay. And you can go to the Kingdom of Jordan has an entire historical layout on this, and they are obviously partisan in this. And I'm trusting their explanation of what happened more than I would anybody else, because they are Muslim, right? Their country was created as well at the same time as Lebanon. Lebanon was supposed to be Christian. Jordan was supposed to be Muslim. Israel was supposed to be Jewish. And that was how it was supposed to be. And so on the website, the history of Palestine and Israel, the Jordan government says Palestinians chose to leave because the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, promised them that if they left, they would mount up a battle and a war and get their land back.
Right. But
those who stayed kept their land, and it's in their family's land into perpetuity. So there are Arabs in
perpetuity.
whatever. Oh my gosh. Michelle's my word Nazi.
That's
Today.
not nice.
All right, you can't say that anymore. I can't make jokes.
You can't say Nazi
my thing went off.
anymore.
My thing went off.
That's hate speech.
I know.
I'm triggered.
I know. I'm triggered myself.
Oh my gosh.
I'm triggered by your word Nazism. Today.
Give it a second.
1, 2, 3. I wonder if it needs to be plugged in.
No,
Needs
it
power.
went.
There we go.
Semester after semester, we studied the Middle East conflict as if it was the most complex conflict in the world, when in fact, it is probably the easiest conflict in the world to explain. It may be the hardest to solve, but it is the easiest to explain. In a nutshell, it's this. One side wants the other side dead. Israel wants to exist as a Jewish state and to live in peace. Israel also recognizes the right of Palestinians to have their own state and to live in peace. The problem, however, is that most Palestinians and many other Muslims and Arabs do not recognize the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist. This has been true since 1947, when the United Nations voted to divide the land called Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. The Jews accepted the United Nations partition, but no Arab or any other Muslim country accepted it. When British rule ended on May 15, 1948, the armies of all the neighboring Arab states, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Transjordan, and Egypt, attacked the one-day-old state of Israel in order to destroy it. But to the world's surprise, the little Jewish state survived. Then it happened again. In 1967, the dictator of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, announced his plan, in his words, to destroy Israel. He placed Egyptian troops on Israel's border, and armies of surrounding Arab countries were also mobilized to attack. However, Israel preemptively attacked Egypt and Syria. Israel did not attack Jordan and begged Jordan's king not to join the war. But he did. And only because of that did Israel take control of Jordanian land, specifically the West Bank of the Jordan River. Shortly after the war, the Arab states went to Khartoum, Sudan, and announced their famous 3 no's. No recognition, no peace, and no negotiations. What was Israel supposed to do? Well, one thing Israel did a little more than a decade later in 1978 was to give the entire Sinai Peninsula, an area of land bigger than Israel itself and with oil, back to Egypt, because Egypt, under new leadership, signed a peace agreement with Israel. So Israel gave land for the promise of peace with Egypt, and it has always been willing to do the same thing with the Palestinians. All the Palestinians have ever had to do is recognize Israel as a Jewish state and promise to live in peace with it. But when Israel has proposed trading land for peace, as it did in 2000, when it agreed to give the Palestinians a sovereign state in more than 95% of the West Bank and all of Gaza, the Palestinian leadership rejected the offer and instead responded by sending waves of suicide terrorists into Israel. Meanwhile, Palestinian radio, television, and school curricula remain filled with glorification of terrorists, demonization of Jews, and the daily repeated message that Israel should cease to exist. So it's not hard to explain the Middle East dispute. One side wants the other dead. The motto of Hamas, the Palestinian rulers of Gaza, is, "We love death as much as the Jews love life." There are 22 Arab states in the world, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. There is one Jewish state in the world, and it is about the size of New Jersey. In fact, tiny El Salvador is larger than Israel. Finally, think about these 2 questions. If tomorrow Israel laid down its arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? And if the Arab countries around Israel laid down their arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? In the first case, there would be an immediate destruction of the state of Israel and mass murder of its Jewish population. In the second case, there would be peace the next day. As I said at the outset, it is a simple problem to describe. One side wants the other dead. And
that's pretty interesting way of putting it. I think that there's probably there's a little bit more to it, but it's a sticky situation.
It is a sticky situation, but I think that was that Dennis Prager did an excellent job of laying it out there. He says it's a difficult problem to fix, but it's really not. It's only difficult because the Palestinians don't want peace. Okay, that's not the objective. When peace itself is not the objective, but rather the destruction and dismantling of an entire state, an entire group of people, you can't reason with those types of people. And like he said, their media, their education system, it's all filled with hate for Israel and wanting death to Israel, you know? So I'm curious as far as a history goes, and maybe you don't have the answer to this, and maybe somebody in the chat does. But I like to go back to the book that I know the best, and that's the Bible. And within it, I see the promised land being promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I see through Moses and then Joshua and Caleb, that land that we are talking about, taken by Jewish people, right? The children of Israel. Do the Palestinians have a claim that supersedes?
There's no such thing as a Palestinian.
You know what I mean? Okay, the Muslims, whatever you want to call them. I know that they say that they come from Esau or whatever.
In the 1600s.
No, I'm way before then.
No, and I'm sorry. In 600 A.D., the Muslims went to there are these holy wars.
Right.
And the Muslims went and they captured Jerusalem, and
what
that is their claim. They have a third holy site.
I mean, before,
Jerusalem.
Is there anything that predates Moses or even Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? But they say that they claim that they come from Abraham as well, sort of. Is there anything that predates that?
I think you're really conflating a lot of things, because the Palestinian region has been the Palestinian region for times of biblical history, but there's never been Palestinians.
Right.
Okay.
Muslims.
So to say,
whatever.
do they have? No, but I'm trying to tell you, not all Palestinians are Muslims.
Right.
Not Muslims. Not all Muslims are Palestinian. Palestine was a region that at the time in the early 1900s, you had a 10% Christian population, you had a Jewish population, and you had a very large Muslim population, thanks to Mohammed setting up the third holiest site in Jerusalem, and thanks to the Holy Wars and the Ottoman Turks going on their crazy rampage for 1,000 years or whatever. So, you know, to say that they had any predates, I mean, here's the thing. Islam wasn't even invented for 600 years.
I know. So
AD.
what I'm saying is, it really was a rhetorical question. Okay? From a biblical Christian standpoint,
This is just, we're really just having a really great show from shit day.
there is nothing that predates. Okay, so the people of Jericho had Jericho. Is there any descendant that lives in Palestine that can go back to then?
You know, here's the thing. We can't, honestly,
It's this region that has gone from hand to hand to hand to hand to hand to hand to hand. It's just part of life. It's part of the existence. If you're an atheist, it's part of evolution. Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm sorry. Israel has a right to exist. They have that land now. They want to live in peace with Palestinians. The people that are fighting that don't want peace. Hamas does not want peace. Rashida Tlaib does not want peace. Ilhan Omar does not want peace. They only want the destruction of Israel. That is the only thing that they will be satisfied with. I'm sorry, they're there. They are there now, okay? It's kind of like if somebody steals, someone's property, okay? And then 300 years later, some descendant of the person that property was stolen comes back and says to the current property owner, give it back. You owe it to me.
You're missing. You're missing the point. It's kind of like...
But the land wasn't even stolen.
It's a sticky situation.
It's not that sticky to me. It's straightforward.
There was some... there's a lot of information. So some of it says that the land was stolen. Some land was stolen. Some people were kicked out. You know, the Jews were kicked out of... The Jews were put in ovens. Okay? The Jews had all their property taken from them. Okay? So yeah, the world decided to make Israel their place.
Historically, you know what? It makes sense to put them there. Out of all the places in the world, where else would you put the children of Israel, of God's chosen people, into the promised land, but back into the promised land? Where else would you put them? It makes sense to me. They got to go somewhere.
There are 22 Arab nations, and the Palestinians are hanging on because they hate the Jews. They're not hanging on because they want the land. They're not hanging on because they really think that the third holy site's really holy.
Right.
They have two other really big holy sites.
Right.
The Jewish main holy site is Jerusalem. Why do you have to take that one as well? Where are you going?
I got bread lady.
Okay. Maybe take her to go potty, see if she will. Forensic. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're moving on. Michelle's moving on. We're going to Esptein. Did he hang himself? His neck broke. His neck broke in a way that would assume that he was killed, but the forensic pathologist has said he hurled himself off the top bunk and broke his neck and killed himself. So Dr. Cyril Wetch claimed Friday that the fractures in Jeffrey Epstein's neck could have happened if he hurled himself off the top bunk, and he would have had to dive because it's 5 feet. I guess you would have to lean forward off the top bunk. So she told guest Charles Payne that Wetch, a guest on Your World with Neil Cavuto, told guest host Charles Payne that a number of details that had leaked with regard to the convicted pedophile's autopsy report didn't add up. So I'm gonna play this to see.
Lasta on Pro. Pay no more.
Totally gonna get an ad here. Okay, here we go. Hang on.
An apparent suicide. I want to go back to forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht. He joins us now. Doctor, you really do not believe, though, from what you know, the idea that perhaps Epstein knelt, tied this noose around his neck from the bed sheets, knelt from his bedpost, and that it created the injuries that we do know about. You do not think those two things are compatible?
Hey, Holly.
I do not believe that a kneeling position with the bed sheet tied to the bedpost and the absence of force that would have been imparted from hurling himself from a top bunk would have provided sufficient force to fracture the hyoid bone and also fractures of the cervical vertebrae. We do not know, and I'm waiting to see this report, how many vertebrae, cervical vertebrae, there are 7, come down from the back of your neck to the bony prominence at the base of your neck. Those are 7 cervical vertebrae. So we want to find out how many of those were broken. You do not get fractures of the cervical vertebrae and of the hyoid bone high up here under the mandible with somebody tying a sheet to a bedpost and leaning forward. You can see there's no force, there's no velocity. There's basic physics formula. Force equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. The mass is his head, fine, and the velocity. And this business about brittleness, he's not a 70, 75-year-old postmenopausal woman.
Though, because if he did this from the top bunk, considering his body weight, you mentioned earlier, 200 pounds off the top bunk, there's already reports out that these marks look like bed sheets. Could then it have been possible?
Yes, if he hurled himself off the top bunk, that force would have made it possible to fracture the cervical vertebrae and the hyoid bone, if they can show in reconstructing that scene, that is what happened. I would say that is a possibility, still raises questions, but I think it falls within the realm of physical possibility with that kind of force present in the scenario that would work with
So
the
let me
bunk.
also ask, because there are some reports leading up to today suggesting also in the haste, once the body was discovered, that certain things may have been done, a rush. Hey, you see the body laying there. Could those kind of things have changed or influenced what these marks and some of these other things? Just trying to retrieve the body.
No. I understand. No. The hastiness, the retrieval of the body and so on, no, I cannot envision how those actions would have produced some anatomical changes such as we have been talking about. No, I do not see that at all. It would have been damaging possibly to the retrieval of other evidence, DNA, physical evidence, trace evidence, but not the anatomical structures in the neck. Anterior and posterior. No, that would not have happened.
So, it's just really weird. The coroner has come out and said, breaking news, Epstein has killed himself by hanging himself. The New York City medical examiner ruled Epstein's death a suicide. The medical examiner's official office said in a statement Friday that an autopsy and other evidence confirms he hung himself in his cell. Epstein was found hanging in his cell from his bunk bed with a prison bed sheet wrapped around his head. He is 6 feet tall, reportedly secured the bed sheet to the top bunk bed and wrapped the sheet around his neck. Many close to Epstein fear he was murdered, and CBS News, citing an unnamed source, also reported on Tuesday that shrieking and shouting was heard from Epstein's cell on the morning of his death. The source also said they heard correction officers saying, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe," while trying to revive him. Now, Alex Jones was on Louder with Crowder today, which I found incredibly intriguing, so you guys can go watch that, where he said people do yell that when they're strangling someone to, it's kind of weird.
What?
Epstein had several broken bones in his neck, which is common in homicide by strangulation. Among the broken bones in Epstein's neck was the hyoid bone, which can be broken during hanging if the individual is older. However, it is more common in a homicide by strangulation, according to forensic experts. The top forensic pathologist, Dr. Sir Retch, said only 1% of hanging deaths resulted in the break of the hyoid bones. Epstein was found dead a day after the documents were unsealed, implicating several elites and Democrats, including Al Gore and former Governor Bill Richardson. Bill Clinton was good friends with Epstein, and so it's a weird situation because you've got.
He said that his body's been claimed by an
family.
unnamed associate.
So he's not really old for those neck bones to break. A lot of people are saying online that it's hard to break those bones. And to me, I'm not going to rule out anything, but Epstein had dirt on people. Why? What? He had all the money in the world. He could fight this. He wasn't facing the death penalty. He was facing life in prison. Why not wait and see if your lawyers can get you off like they did before? He was facing a lot of charges.
Off, they can get a lot of people off.
He was facing charges before, and he spent like 12 months. He had to go sleep in the jail, and he was out on work release.
Right.
What makes it so that he had a lot of reasons to live? From what I understand, people who visited him said that he was in good spirits.
Here's the deal also. I would think, and this is just me in my twisted brain, but if I was Epstein and I had all this dirt on all of these huge figures.
And that's the key right there.
I mean, you could cut a plea deal. I mean, there is no end to the plea deals that he could have cut, okay? On probably multiple counts. I mean, he probably could have seen very little punishment considering the dirt that he had on all of these huge names and huge figures. So I would be
That's
sitting
some
pretty...
big deals that he could really...
I would have been like, you know, I'm Esptein. I know all this stuff, so you can't touch me. Well, but they can kill you.
Get this. Jeffrey Epstein met with a young... what's playing? Stop.
Hang on, because I guess Maia made a really good point here. I didn't see Maia's comment, but I saw Jesus's comment. Says, you're right, narcissists do not commit suicide. And they don't. And I think that Epstein was a narcissist. He was
not a man in deep depression. Okay? He was not a man who thought, oh my gosh, my life is over. All right? He knew so many people. He had ways to get out.
That's such a great point. Narcissists do not commit suicide. They are so obsessed with themselves. They are so confident. They are so even obsessed with the fame that would come from something like this.
You should probably lie down.
Yeah. That he would not have done this. This man did not commit suicide.
Jeffrey Epstein met with young woman after removal from Suicide Watch. Alleged child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who was found dead over the weekend, was reportedly locked in a meeting room with a young woman one day after the millionaire criminal was removed from the suicide list.
And who was this young woman?
In an interview with Forbes, an attorney who was asked not to be identified said Epstein and the young woman were together in the room, typically reserved for inmates and their lawyers, for at least 2 hours.
You're joking.
The optics were startling because she was young and pretty.
Who was she, though?
The magazine. The attorney suggested the woman may have been a lawyer, a hooker lawyer. He said he visited the Manhattan Correctional Center on July 30th, one day after the disgraced investor was reportedly removed from the jail's suicide watch and later transferred to the special housing unit. Do you understand? Epstein knew how to get things done. He could even get himself a sex bot in jail. Okay? He was that powerful.
His lawyer says if I was him, I would have hired an old bald guy, you know, to kind of make it look like, listen, I didn't do this. This isn't who I am. But if you're obsessed and addicted...
Yeah, exactly.
Patriot Gallery says that she thinks that it was the demons inside of him that made him kill himself.
Maybe. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know when the last time we talked to you. I think Wednesday. So I think I told you guys Wednesday the updates where supposedly the guards fell asleep. Both of them fell asleep. So yeah, that's not buying it. Not a thing. So
Leslie says on Facebook, just admit America is corrupt and they bumped him off to save their own skin. Okay, first of all, the Clintons don't represent all of America. I take offense to that. Like, seriously. Oh my gosh.
So here's
how rude.
So here's our commercial break. I call these commercial breaks with news that has nothing to do with anything else.
Okay.
It doesn't really mean anything in life. So Disney faces boycott after Mulan star sides with Hong Kong police. So what I found incredibly amazing about this on Twitter was that the left and mostly black people were saying, I wasn't going to see Mulan anyways because whatever. But now that I see that she's siding with the Hong Kong police, then I'm going to boycott it. So it's incredibly heartening to see the left and the right come together and say what's happening in Hong Kong is the right thing for them to stand up for democracy.
But hang on, though, because doesn't it kind of show a little bit of ignorance on their part to just lump all police together when they're actually fighting on the same side? I mean, they're fighting against themselves. Okay, the police here in the United States represent freedom, whereas the police in China represent communism, dictatorship, kind of left-leaning policies, socialism, and the like, controlling people, not letting them have freedom, you know.
So, here's the thing. This is what I want you to understand with this, and this, I guess I go my China angle now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about China today, because I really want to hammer China. I've always wanted to hammer China. I literally was walking on a walk yesterday. I'm sorry, I have to get up and down because I can't stand for too long and I can't sit for too long. I was literally walking yesterday praying for my Christian brothers and sisters in China, and I was so angry No, I don't want custom computers. ABC, could you just leave? I don't know why this is doing this lately, Google. My computer. Go away. Thank you. China has taken over Hollywood.
Yes.
So they love their little war heroes, but they have to be like pro-China. They can't be pro-revolutionary, even though she was a revolutionary, Mulan was.
Right.
So Boycott Mulan is trending after Disney's Chinese-born star, Mulan, Crystal Liu Yifei, offered her support for the brutal Hong Kong police over democracy-seeking protesters. So yes, Michelle, I think that the black people who were, hey, hashtag all police are bad, gets them maybe thinking. Maybe gets it in the right direction.
I think it's great.
Right?
I agree.
Maybe their anger will be put in the right direction. She, to her 65 million followers, I'm sure that China has bought a few. Right?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
The actress shared an image from China's Communist Party newspaper, The People's Daily, and said, "I support the Hong Kong police. You can beat me up now." She added the hashtag, "I also support the Hong Kong police," with a heart emoji, and it's the sentiment, "What a shame for Hong Kong." And now that the boycott hashtag, as of this writing, is the top trender on Twitter, and almost all the comments reacting are critical, why are people surprised, though? Surprised that anyone associated with Disney would side with brutal communist enforcers over people waving American flags who only want to be free. Disney has been kissing red Chinese for at least a decade. In fact, for the last 10 years, all of Hollywood has openly sold its black soul. Its black soul to the red Chinese. Because Hollywood is run by greedy left-wing tyrants, we have seen movie after movie that portrays this brutal regime as benevolent and heroic. What's more, Hollywood now censors itself, polices itself, and willingly surrenders its own artistic expression to these censorous monsters, and has done so for naked greed. We saw that with, I'm like, why are there so many Chinese people in Star Wars? Like, I don't mind it, but like, there's an agenda here. And you watch a lot of these movies where it's the Americans and the Chinese fighting together. Always the American and the Chinese. China saving the world from big bad robots or aliens or something like that.
Right.
It's getting tiresome. Like, I'm sick of it. Like, it's like, stop already. This is not promoting, like, the narrative here.
Well, and here's the thing. The issue isn't, like, okay, like, let's say China owns Hollywood like they do. Okay, we don't have to say that. It is. So China owns Hollywood. Now, if it was just a regular ownership, and it's like, okay, well, you own Hollywood. If you want to insert your Chinese people as heroines of films or heroes of films, then okay, fine. That you own Hollywood, you can do that. The issue is the fact that they literally are brainwashing people. Their agenda is not just that simple. Like, hey, we want to showcase more of our Chinese actors and we want Americans to be more friendly with China. That's not it at all. It literally is an agenda that they are pushing, a brainwashing, and it's not just putting in the Chinese actors and actresses. It's the
they changed the
message.
Remake. They changed the remake of Red Dawn.
Exactly.
They had already shot the film,
right?
And the invaders were the Red Chinese. But they had to change that to North Korea.
Right.
Because of China. So, yay, China. Hong Kong's richest man lectures protesters to love China. Hong Kong newspapers... Hong Kong's wealthiest man, Li Ka-shing, bought a multiple front-page newspaper ads Friday encouraging protesters to love China and love the rule of law. The 91-year-old also apparently paid a man known as the French Spider-Man to unfurl a large red banner showing a unified Chinese Communist and Hong Kong flag and two hands shaking. Lee's front page ads use cryptic language to discourage Hong Kong residents from protesting against the repressive communist state, as they have been doing by the millions since early June. Love China, love Hong Kong, love oneself, love freedom, love empathy, love rule of law. Freedom? Yeah, they do love freedom. Another version of the ad alluded to a Tang Dynasty poem reading, "The melon of the Hung Tai cannot bear the picking again." In the poem, a Tang Dynasty crown prince warns that picking too much fruit off of a healthy melon tree can kill it. Lee appears to be warning that Hong Kong protesters demanding too much freedom from the Communist Party may end up killing off Hong Kong entirely.
So Eric wants to know, so if China owns Hollywood, does that mean that the Illuminati come from the Chinese, or the Chinese are just part of them?
They're not.
I think it's two different. It's a convergence, actually. China doesn't own all of Hollywood. Okay, they've just recently kind of bought into them, like the past, I don't know, I would say like 10,
15, 20 years.
Yeah, something like that. So yes, they're still the Illuminati in Hollywood. I think they're a separate, and now they're kind of joining forces. Actually, I think some of the Illuminati are being squashed by the Chinese agenda, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Definitely. But that's a very good question.
Okay, where am I?
What do you think, Holly? Hollywood?
Truly frightening how the U.S. relies on China for vital industries.
Come here.
It amazes me how how Chinese government doesn't have a problem with the Chinese printing Bibles or making all these United States flags and United States apparel and things like that. Because I feel like they think, and it does, I think it's dehumanizing anyways, because you don't have the freedom, so it doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Our country's reliance on China, she might need to go potty.
We took her out.
Okay. For vital industries that are necessary for the United States nation's security is truly frightening. This week, President Trump's administration announced the additional tariffs on China would be delayed into September for some imports and December for others. The plan is to set a 10% tariff on $300 billion worth of Chinese imports, including imported cell phones, laptops, and computer monitors. Everything that we have in life relies on Chinese slave labor. And we talk about this a lot, and I feel like right now is a really good time to really focus on it, because with the Hong Kong protests, there could be a massive push, and we could see a switch. There is absolutely no reason that China has to be communist right now.
Right.
We live in a world of free information and freedom of thought. And if the internet opened up for the Chinese people...
Which, by the way, it's closed. For those of you that don't know, they don't have free internet.
If the internet opened up like it did in Hong Kong for the Chinese people, they would be free. They'd free themselves in an instant. There are more people than there are Chinese government officials. And even the Chinese government officials who know they're brainwashed too. And once you know the truth, like our friend Chi, who came to stay with us, who was from China, whose parents are in the government, had never heard of Jesus. He had heard of Santa Claus and Christmas, but he never heard of Jesus. They had literally, this kid was in his 20s. He went through his whole life and he never heard who Jesus was. And he met some Chinese Christians and he talked to us. And he sent us a letter, and he came to know Jesus as Savior, and says, why God loved me so much? Because Chinese people, they do want to feel loved.
Right. And
so the government makes it out to be God and says the government loves you, and you need to love the government. And they brainwash these kids to be good citizens, and they, when it comes to eating food, it's really, really restricted. And, we can have pop, but not every day. We can have sweets, but not every day. It's like, what he kept saying was not every day. And he particularly, and he said this was the same for everybody around him, ate really slow. You would take 3 hours to eat your dinner because that's all the food you got. And that was all the things to do. There was nothing to do. Like, we see China, we think that China is, fast paced and video games and they have all kinds of stuff to do. No. The average person, even with a government official kid, has nothing to do. They don't.
Well, that's what automation does, though. Automation makes it so you don't have to do any manual labor for yourself, down to the minutest of things. But in addition to that, communism also squashes creativity. So you're not going to have hobbies like in China.
Exactly. If you're playing the instrument, if you're doing something, it's doing it because you have to be intense about it,
and you have to be
not because you enjoy it.
Right. So hang on. Stuart the Brit says China's economy is in recession and getting worse. So either they have to trade nicely or get aggressive. Wonder which they will choose. So not only is China's economy in recession, but we're getting ready to go into a recession. You cannot have any more of those. You've had plenty. So there's no wonder that it's all over the world. It's not just China. It's happening because the world is based on the American fiat dollar. What did you
By the way, I wanted to play this. This was one clip you needed to see. That Trump is the most important.
Pastor, you hear Maia lay out the history. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I used to, as ambassador, host Codels and congressmen, but I have to put this into some Sorry. I mean, this is all about politics is local. Benjamin Netanyahu was under enormous pressure to permit these two congresswomen to come, even though just a few days before their arrival, there was a bipartisan delegation of congressmen led by Steny Hoyer, and these two congresswomen refused to be part of that. I'm no fan of the squad. I believe they were basically going to stir up a lot of mischief during this trip. However, the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu was prepared to let Israel turn into a vassal state for Donald Trump, particularly at a time when Netanyahu only cares about one thing, which is his ability to form a new government if he obtains the mandate that he needs in the September 17th election. All politics is local in Israel, and in Israel, Trump is the most popular person in Israel.
Well, you mentioned that trip. We have some footage there of the top Republicans speaking about what you're referencing, so let's see that for context.
Had I wished that she would have joined, they would have joined all of us, yeah. Join the other freshmen as well. And that we see it together. And when we work on these issues as one body, we have the same experiences that we're looking through. But I think it's healthy that all members come.
And saying, as you said, there may be good faith or strong disagreements about the underlying policy.
So that was an interestingly not so horrible clip from MSNBC. Trump is the most popular person in Israel. You know why? Because they live every day in fear that they're going to be destroyed. They literally have people all around them who want them dead. And you don't live with that, so you don't understand what that's like. Okay?
Let's be inclusive here.
You don't. I already feel bad for them. So, here's another commercial. The man accused of shooting the Philadelphia police has extensive criminal background.
6 counts.
He opened fire on several Philadelphia police officers, wounding 6 and causing a nearly 8-hour standoff. Has an extensive criminal background. He turned himself into police. Now everybody says that police just let white men surrender. He's a black man. Police let him surrender.
After shooting 6 cops.
But there are more than enough charges, so Mr. Maurice Hill will never exit a jail.
Yeah.
And he should not.
Well, okay, so he had a history of violence, of fleeing from police, of drugs. The story there actually goes really, really deep. He should have been convicted and actually should have already been in jail.
Right.
But somehow, who knows how, he got off scot-free in cases that no white person, black person, Hispanic person ever should have gotten off on. Okay? So it's actually way more nefarious than it seems. I don't understand. After reading his criminal record and reading the things that they had against him.
Gun charges. He should have never been able to possess.
Shots fired! Shots fired inside!
So we remember that. That's just the thing. Gun laws on the books should have kept this guy from having a gun. So what it says is that the laws on the books were not being enforced. How did he? Let's see. 2001, when he was 18, he was arrested for possessing a gun with an altered serial number. In 2008, he was convicted of fleeing from police and resisting arrest and pled guilty to illegal possession of firearms. In 2014, he was arrested for a drug possession and false imprisonment. But none of his crimes compared to the 6 charges that he will be serving under. So, speaking of that, the coroner says that the gunman in Dayton, his blood was filled with cocaine, antidepressants, and alcohol.
Wow.
So he definitely was a bomb ready to go off. A pipe device in a clear baggie carrying cocaine was found on his body. And what came out interestingly was a sad obituary from his parents that didn't mention the shooting.
You're kidding.
That didn't mention his sister and only said he was a bright, happy child.
You're kidding.
They had to issue an apology, realizing the insensitivity of they're grieving the loss of their son, and they don't the obituary didn't seem to indicate that they cared that he killed his sister and 8 other people.
Strange.
I think that that's the disconnect that they had from their son, realizing, you know, they obviously were horrible parents. They get like the horrible parent of the year award because they had to know their son was doing drugs. Their son had tried to strangle 2 girls. I mean, he was known for being violent and weird and doing drugs, and you don't see that on your kid.
Well, okay, so I hate to conflate the 2 shootings, but since they happened within, you know, less than 24 hours of each other, in El Paso, that young man's father was a Satanist. Okay, like a self-professed, you can find video footage of him saying he loves John of God, the Satanist. And the young man, the Dayton shooter, was also seen wearing Satanist patches on his shirt. Mm-hmm. And we know that he was in a porno grind band that was full of violence. Okay, so we do know that there's a connection, at least with the El Paso shooter, whose parent was a psychologist and a Satanist. And that this young man may not have been as intelligent as they are claiming that he was. And then we see the satanic Satanist element here with the Dayton shooter. And I don't want this to come out sounding insensitive or wrong, because there are a lot of good parents out there whose kids go off the rails and they have no, you know, whatever. But I'm just saying that there is a possibility here that the parents also may be. I'm not trying to libel anybody, but I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know anything about them, but it's something worth considering. So I did want to get to this comment from Eric here, because this is kind of like in correlation with what you were saying about Chi, about him not having any knowledge of Jesus. And Eric says, I tried to type this a little earlier, but my phone died. The brainwashing in America is powerful also. I never really knew who Jesus was or what he did, giving his life for all for sin, and I never knew he died for me. I heard the gospel, and now I am one of his. And I think Kansas can say the same thing. He went to church and didn't know that Jesus died for his sins. Okay, so we do have that same. It's just a little bit different, but it's getting closer to China here in the United States. You're 100% right about that, Eric, which is a far cry from the old Diluter Satan Act, where the only reason they wanted public schools and wanted all children to be able to read so that they could read the Bible for themselves and understand the gospel.
So we had more people coming to Baltimore to clean up.
He's got All-American Sanitation, and I own a company called Gruntworks and Fitzhugh Custom Apparel. And you know, part of what we do is disaster relief after hurricanes and floods and everything like that. And obviously, John having a sanitation company,
it seems
they deal with trash. So we kind of put our heads together, and John's idea to
kind of clean up.
Let's travel around the country and pick different areas that we can clean up. And you know, so we started with here. Obviously, Baltimore has been a hot topic recently. We're not here for any type of political, you know, activism or anything like that. It's just our love for America is so much that we think every American deserves to live in a trash-free environment.
That's good. Every American does deserve that.
Wait, you need to see this, because they rescued people from an overdose.
Get out.
Yeah.
Stay down. Bro, you best you do. Yeah, so we were setting up. Actually, this was the first street we started on. Looked behind us, and a couple of gentlemen walked past us, obviously being affected by some type of narcotic. Being a police officer myself, I knew it pretty much right away. Looked over, and all of a sudden they were just not in good shape, and eventually face down on the ground or leaned up against a curb, stopped breathing, checked for pulse, very weak, and we were able to get some Narcan from one of the locals here and administer that and keep an eye on them until they were brought back. Luckily, we were able to stay with them until they were able to walk away on their own before the next got here. But there was definitely a period of time where essentially they had passed and then brought back with the use of the Narcan. We're here until Saturday afternoon.
So they literally saved people's lives.
That's crazy.
Well
done. Bravo.
Up. Yeah. So there's some good news there.
I love good news.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I love good news too. Let's see. Nope, not that. No, don't play. So here's another commercial break.
Okay.
Stop.
The same one.
Stop. Okay, so, I don't normally cover this stuff, but when it's the fake news media,
I have no idea where this is going.
You guys know this guy. His name is Don Lemon.
Oh my gosh, no, not Don Lemon.
Don Lemon has been accused of sexually assaulting someone, a straight guy.
Are you serious? Did I hear about this?
I didn't spell it right. How do you spell it?
Lemon.
That's what I thought.
It's Lemon.
Yeah.
Like lemon.
Mm-hmm.
Lemon. L-E.
That's
not
low
men.
Lemon.
Lemon.
Like
it's like
literally
lemon. Literally, it's lemon, but it's lemon. Don Lemon.
Okay. So this man here, I'm not sure if this is the boss or the guy who says that he was sexually accosted by Don Lemon, but Chris Cuomo is a CNN host, already under fire for threatening people and saying that if you call me Fredo, which is the dumb Italian guy in The Godfather, then that's
equivalent as using the N-word.
Even though he came out
I don't think there is anything as equivalent as using the N-word.
No, and he came out and said his dad used to call him Fredo. It's like a thing among
Italians. And footage, somebody compiled footage of him having, there goes your hat there, having guests on his show that said that word and used it, and he didn't didn't seem to take offense. Like, how dare you call Don Jr. that?
So the salacious details I'm not going to get into, but because you can go read it yourself, it's pretty gross.
Oh,
but I suppose
it's just an accusation at this point.
Well, it's more than an accusation.
Okay,
because this guy and his boss went to this little bar, this little pub.
That's a pub.
Yeah,
looks like a house.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in Sag Harbor, New York, and it's
Murphs.
the place you go after, I guess, all the other bars shut down. And they went up to Don Lemon and said, "Hey, Don," and he thought he was being accosted, and he said, "I just want to buy you a drink." Well, Don Lemon came back over and said, "What? Do you like me or something? Like, do you like me?" And then he says, "Are you into girls or boys?" But he's very vulgar about it. And then he proceeds to do some weird thing
in public.
Now, the boss thought it was funny. But the guy, he always knew that the guy was really upset about it. So much so, the whole community knew about it. And when he would go to bars, they would give him lemon drop shots. So everybody knew about what happened. So it wasn't hidden. It wasn't this guy just making this up by himself. His boss is coming out saying, "I feel bad now for making fun of him." Because he came up and he told me exactly what happened. And I heard him saying some of these things. And I kind of saw what happened. And he's like, but I didn't think much of it because he's Don Lemon. Maybe he's gay, and maybe that's how gay people try to pick people up. I don't know.
But that doesn't make it okay.
No, it doesn't make it okay.
So
will Don Lemon face the same scrutiny as if he had done that to a woman? If he had done it to a woman, his head would be on a chopping block. You would never see or hear from him again.
Right.
But because he did it to a man, it's like gay people get off with things more because but gay people do things differently.
Okay, but I'm really curious because I hate to I don't know, in this Me Too movement, the guy didn't report it as sexual harassment.
No, he didn't report it, but he told everybody what happened
and so okay. So he's not trying to press charges. He's not trying to say, listen, this was such a big deal that he
pressing charges now.
Oh, how long ago did it happen?
Well, it wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
I don't think it's the statute of limitations is there.
Okay.
The former boss of a bartender who earlier this week filed an explosive lawsuit against CNN host Don Lemon.
He's filing a lawsuit.
Accusing the newsman of a strange sexually charged assault, told Fox News he witnessed the incident and corroborated his one-time employee's claim.
Okay.
George Goulas, who managed some other bar, So yeah, we'll see how far this goes because you have people backing you up. You have the whole, or we have a witness. You have the whole community hearing about what happened.
But here's the thing: if a straight white male gets sexually assaulted
by a black guy,
you're guilty. It's your fault that you didn't go along with it.
Maybe. Right. So, Chris Cuomo threatens to throw a guy down the stairs. April Ryan, this black lady, here's a contributor. She had a bodyguard assault a journalist. I'm not going into that, but there's video of it. It just don't feel like it's important right now. But I want to tell, there's another commercial break here. The Proud Boys released an official statement because Portland officials target them, arrest the conservative pro-rally patriots before Saturday's rally. They've not arrested Antifa. They have not arrested the people who went after Andy Ngo. And the mayor said that we're going to go after him. We're going after him. We're not going light on Antifa. But they went and they preemptively arrested conservatives. There was a fight, and this fight is actually what got Gavin McInnes, I think, taken off of his show, and then subsequently taken off of all social media. But what's interesting about it is that I don't know of any of the Antifa members who got in this fight. It was a brawl between Antifa and Proud Boys. And supposedly it actually started with the Antifa people throwing beer bottles at the Trump crew, and then they fought back. And now people who didn't do anything are being arrested. Ian Kramer is in custody on multiple felony charges. Matthew Dean Cooper originally faced misdemeanors of harassment and disorderly conduct, but now faces felony for riot. Mackenzie Lewis was arrested by the U.S. Marshals on a charge for riot. And now the Patriot Prayer leader, Joey Gibson, is now being charged with riot. Another person, Russell Schultz, was also picked up by the U.S. Marshals in Washington. Witnesses say Schultz was just standing around and didn't do anything. Others were there but not taking part, such as independent media, and are now concerned that they will be arrested as well. So here's their official statement. Following an embarrassing and impotent performance on Fox News, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler has decided to randomly pursue criminal charges against right-leaning political activists in the days leading up to the August 17th in domestic terrorism rally aimed at drawing attention to the documented and deranged violent tactics of Antifa. This coordinated Gestapo-style roundup of free speech advocates is not a mistake or randomly timed. Considering the lack of arrests or warrants issued for dozens of violent Antifa domestic terrorists still at large from previous melees, these disturbing movements prove an underlying political motivation for the recent actions from the Portland mayor and Portland Police Bureau. Wheeler refused to name the domestic terror group by name on his Fox News interview, but claimed that the Portland Police Bureau was still investigating Antifa's brutal beating of a gay journalist, which left him hospitalized with a brain bleed. Despite a mountain of evidence and Rose City Antifa claiming responsibility for the gay bashing, no warrants have been issued and no arrests made. Antifa has been allowed to run roughshod over law enforcement and the citizens of Portland for years, using their fists and blunt force objects to bludgeon their opponents into silence or self-imposed exile from subsequent political gatherings for fear of ending up in a body bag or forever maimed at the hands of the black mass psychopaths. Just recently, an Antifa-obsessed and alt-left linked madman killed 9 people and injured more with a dozen in Dayton shooting. On Thursday, the Portland Police Bureau falsely claimed on Twitter that it had been unable to coordinate with the organizers of the domestic terrorism rally, despite organizers having already begun communication with the liaison officer. While the organizers of the domestic terrorism rally remain steadfast in their support for law enforcement officers, putting such dubious claims out to the public serve no purpose. Unfortunately, it looks like an Antifa sympathizer or a politically motivated public relations staffer with the Portland Police Bureau is intent on creating a cloud of confusion surrounding Saturday's gathering. They're not terrorists. They're not racist.
Wow.
The Proud Boys have a long history of defending rallygoers and draining local bars of their beers and booze. We will have several prominent constitutional law attorneys on standby this weekend in the event that Antifa or the Portland Police Bureau infringe on our constitutionally protected right to assemble peacefully. So, I wanted to get that out for you guys, because I feel like this is no bueno. No stinking bueno. Here's time for a small...
So, Britt Baza says Antifa should be prescribed, or I think you mean just... labeled as a terrorist group in the Western nations. I could not agree with you more. They definitely are a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And Boss Torres says, like in Minority Report, when you're preemptively arresting people for crimes that they have not committed. Now, the only way you can do that is if you have evidence that they have conspired to commit a crime.
Right.
And I don't think they had that sort of evidence on the Proud Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
To do that. So that's what makes it so wrong.
Here's your other commercial break, because I'm going to get to something really important towards the end here. We ran a little late, so I'm going to go a little late. Snopes.
Oh boy, this should be good.
Let me see if I gotta find it. I think I might have to do a little Snopes. It's really funny.
Stuart the Brit says, what is interesting to watch is how the left are turning against each other and their own morals. And it is getting kind of crazy. Kelly says, YouTube is getting crazy over racist stuff, yet they can show these nasty things, like the XXX things. Well said.
Okay, so this was Snopes 7 hours ago. Stories published by the Babylon Bee were among the most shared and factually inaccurate content in almost every survey of this research. Too many people think satirical news is real.
Okay, though. Wait a minute. Because I think there's been 2 times before I knew that the Babylon Bee was satire that I read the articles and thought to myself, this can't be true. Like, this is insane. Like, usually their articles are something that I want to be true. And so I kind of get, like, excited. And I think you had to, like, deflate my balloon. So they kind of have a point, because sometimes people do believe the Babylon Bee.
Well, if you actually go to each article and you read it, it says satire.
Right. I know.
It says it.
But you don't... You know what happens when you open up an article? You're just kind of skimming to get the meat of it. Like, what is this thing? You don't,
Snopes strikes deal with Netflix to provide on-screen fact checks for fictional shows and movies.
That's satire. That's really funny. Al Park says the Babylon Bee is hilarious. I could not agree more. They are great. I love reading their articles. They bring fun to this otherwise dark and dreary world. I kind of want our channel to be a little bit Babylon Bee-ish-esque. Whenever I describe our channel to other people who've never heard of it, I say it's political commentary with sarcasm thrown in. And I think that we have neglected the sarcasm part of late, and I feel like as an ingredient, as a recipe for something that would, like, if you're going to bake the same cake, you should make sure that it always has the equal amount of... Do you think it's there?
It's always there.
I don't feel like it has been there as much as it should be.
Women who don't believe Israel has a right to exist, not sure why they got banned from Israel. Well, okay, here you go. Yesterday's article in the Wall Street Journal, not Snopes, was that Trump had floated the idea of buying Greenland.
No.
And then Greenland had to come out and say, we're not for sale, but we're open for business.
Stop it.
So everybody was hashtagging Greenland regime change. So this from the Babylon Bee.
Oh, this is great.
There have been rumors that President Trump was considering buying Greenland, and Trump has now confirmed those rumors, revealing that he sees it as a great money-making opportunity if the U.S. purchases the world's largest island, fixes it up, and then sells it at a much higher price. Look at it. It's prime real estate. It's on the very desirable Upper West Side, of the Prime Meridian. And if we just modernize it a bit, that's going to be some valuable property. I'm going to split the profits from selling it with the American people 60-40. Trump says his first plan will be to get rid of the giant glacier in the middle of Greenland. That used to be popular, but it's out of style now. He plans to replace it all with ultra fancy hardwood floors. In addition, he plans to maybe put up some shiplap on an island, add an island, and upgrade the bathrooms. He's looking at opening it up into more of an open concept feel with some farmhouse sinks and a more rustic feel. The president has reportedly hired Chip and Joanna Gaines to help with the upgrades. They previously worked with him to put some shiplap on the southern border wall. Democrats, however, are opposed as they are usually against all of Trump's awesome schemes, like his tax cuts and his robot force, a fighting force made entirely of robots. I don't know if I trust the market to not collapse soon, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said. Plus, with the sheer volume of hardwood floors he's taking, we'd basically have to deforest all of Brazil. Trump is undaunted, though, and was last seen at his local credit union applying for a loan pre-approval, so he'll be ready to buy Greenland from Norway or Finland or whatever.
And from what I've heard, it's going to become a tropical getaway. So if you want to, like, be in your swimsuit and swim in the beach and let your hair down, then that's where you can go. Because Trump's all about that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure in Greenland, where it's totally green all the time, very lush and green, that's exactly his plan.
I will say this. Trump did say at his rally, it's not the gun that pulls the trigger.
And very
I feel
true.
like that is really important.
It is.
Okay, guys, so we're going to move on to our next kind of, that was a good story, but I came across this today. Not the Don Lemon thing anymore. So from David J. Harris Jr., and then I started seeing it everywhere. Now go Google, and Michelle has the trailer here, and maybe Michelle will just play you the trailer. It's called 8 Days. And Jacko Buens is the producer and director of the newly released film 8 Days, a documentary that points out the evil of child sex trafficking and what causes the demand for children as sex slaves. He believes that child porn builds the desire and that sex traffickers are working hard to keep up with the demand. Buens said that behind almost every pedophile is a long history of child porn. And the way he said this, and you can, I should have had it up. Mark Levin had him on, and you can't see it in its entirety. I can't find the whole show, but I was able to find a snippet of it where he had the producer of this show on, and it is here, part 1.
Boyens,
so let me give you background on who he is before we play the trailer.
Okay, but I can't get my screen. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Founder and president of After Eden Pictures. You're committed to exposing this sex trafficking epidemic that's going on in the United States, and quite frankly, Mexico and the Philippines and all over the world. Your feature film is 8 Days. If people want to see that film, where do they go?
They can go to Netflix. They can buy it direct.
Netflix.
They can stream it. Yeah.
Okay, you can stream it.
Really, most places.
Why isn't this getting the kind of media attention that it deserves? Here I am on Fox. We're spending an hour discussing this.
So then he goes on to say, Hollywood is a part of the problem, and the media is part of the problem, and that's why he has reached out to the mainstream media, and they have not responded.
He's so busy, focused on other issues,
on Trump or Russia,
matters of such significance to so many families in this country. They're just too busy to pay attention.
You want to believe they're too busy to pay attention, and yes, they are, because they're busy with silly stuff, accusing the president, who by the way, is the president of the United States history, legitimately, that's done more to protect children who are potentially and currently in a sex trafficking environment. So yes, maybe they're just too busy, but I still also, yeah.
This president, Donald Trump, has done more to try to address this than previous presidents, than Barack Obama?
No question.
How so?
Not just done more to try to address it, but actionable work where there's rescues, where he has empowered ICE. CNN loves to throw ICE under the bus. These are incredible men and women that help us. HSI, Special Response Team, incredible people who actually go and keep America's children safe. This president has empowered them to do so. He's actually made this a desk topic in the Oval Office.
Wow.
Our children cannot be sold for sex. We cannot perpetuate slavery in the world, never mind in this country, because it's alive and well. Truly. Yes.
We talk about slavery 150 years ago.
Yep. We think it was abolished. It was not.
You're talking about slavery today.
Today.
of a different type.
Different type.
Little kids.
But they're slaves.
But they're slaves.
Yeah.
It's not discussed during these presidential debates.
Never.
It's not discussed during these roundtables on television.
No way.
Actual ongoing real-life slavery in the United States with little kids.
What's more important, Mark? We want to talk about 401k or health plan.
So all those Democrats on the Democratic debate stage. Atlanta, Georgia is the #1 state, or the #1 city in the entire world, over Thailand and the Philippines, for child sex trafficking.
You're kidding.
No.
I did
and
not
Los
know
Angeles is #3.
I did not know that.
Their United States sex trafficking is more than the Philippines and Thailand.
And so here's the thing that really has to bother you. The fact that when they get up on that stage, or they have any talking point when they're given a microphone, and they care more about, or they say that they care more about kids being ripped from their families, from their parents, than they do about kids being sex trafficked, because I think it's like a third of those kids are being sex trafficked.
But ICE, exactly. In actually Texas.
It's probably safer for them to be ripped from the people that they came with.
The second one is in Texas. I can't remember what city it was in Texas. And ICE is actually arresting these sex traffickers and setting kids free. So the Trump administration is doing the exact opposite of what the media is saying. Trump is putting kids in cages. And no, Trump is getting rescuing kids from sex trafficking.
The fact that they won't even acknowledge the fact that kids are being sex trafficked over the border.
That ICE, that Ilhan Omar and all these people in AOC want to abolish ICE, and ICE is arresting sex traffickers. What do you have to say to that?
Their point is that to ignore it, to just not talk about it. Kids are not being sex trafficked over the border. It does not happen. Trump is wrong.
Right.
That's
of course, those things are important.
That's what they say.
But if this is Mother Teresa, and I'm going to paraphrase, right? Mother Teresa, a little Diana as their own, right? Mother Teresa says, if you cannot protect your children, you've lost your society. Right. They won't even talk about it. Show me a single debate where they will really dive in on the left and say, hey, candidate Vice President Biden, what are you going to do to save America's children? Kamala Harris, what do you mean save our children? How are we going to stop slavery in the United States today? It's see no evil, hear no evil. That's what I get. I get talk to the hand, don't want to cover it, it's too controversial. Are they too busy? Sure, yeah, they're very busy with...
But you have affirmatively gone to CNN and they haven't accepted it.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox.
You're not going to touch
it's
it.
Local Fox in Dallas, Texas, local Fox in Tennessee, and then you. And I've had discussions with some of your peers on your network that are willing and say, look, this can't continue. So by default, it makes me understand. My takeaway is, okay, there is a group in our country that's fighting for life, and there's a group in our country that's fighting for death.
I want to pursue this with you. There's a group that's fighting for life, and there's a group that's not.
Yeah.
Because what you seem to be suggesting by that, when we come back, is this mentality of late-term abortion or even infanticide as a choice. And then it creates... Well, Congress can't change society. Society has to address society. Correct. Congress can screw things up more than anything else.
Exactly. So why don't you go ahead and play the trailer now for them. It's called 8 Days, and it is, if you've got kids watching, maybe don't watch it because it is a little disturbing. It's not horribly disturbing.
Here's this one?
That's one of the trailers. There's an official trailer that I think that's the official trailer. Yeah.
Do you want this?
No, I'm gonna go check on something real quick. Just maybe start.
We miss you. Oh, hey, Reed. Come say hi to Amber.
I used to think trafficking didn't really exist.
It's important that we know who Amber hangs out with. We just always want to make sure that she's safe.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know you were friends with him. This is Tyler. He's gonna be our driver tonight.
I was hoping that you could come with me.
She has never done this before.
If she hasn't turned up by tomorrow, we'll file the paperwork and we'll start a search.
I'm Heather Hayes. As you know, we've been following the heartbreaking story of missing teenager Amber Stevenson.
Yo, Neil. Because I Mitch.
No one ever wakes up thinking they'll be kidnapped. This shouldn't happen here. Darkness. Monsters. I can't close my eyes or cover my ears anymore.
I got nothing from the text.
You said it would be okay. Why are you doing this? Where are you taking me?
I didn't know what was gonna happen to her. Honest.
No! Mommy, no! No! Mommy, no!
I know my child. Help me.
We can go together. Every life is worth saving.
Drew is lying!
Your last chance. I'll kill you and your family.
We're gonna find her.
So, you know, as I watched that, because I had not seen the trailer there, it's so important. I have a hard time, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a big sissy, I don't know, but I have a hard time with stuff like that. And I have a friend of mine who is as well, but sometimes I think there are things that we have to watch. And it's not enough just to know about it. And I think that it is really important that you guys take the time to watch that film, and we here at Resistance Chicks are going to take the time to watch that film, even though it looks very disturbing and it looks very hard to watch. And why would I encourage you to watch something that is so difficult? Why would I encourage you to share something that is so difficult? Because here in the United States, when they talk about white privilege, there's not white privilege here. But we certainly are privileged at all walks of life, even if you live in government housing. We don't stop to recognize that these things are happening. And if we don't do that, then we can't turn to God for the salvation of it, for the making it right. And so I do think it's really important to share that message, to share that this is happening, and to not let the left, or whatever you want to call them, because we have lefty friends that are offended that we use that term, but to not let the powers that be sweep this issue under the rug, to not let them defame Donald Trump for saying, listen, we have to stop the sex trafficking. Every time Donald Trump says, stop the sex trafficking, I want you to think of this film. I want you to think of these innocent, that young lady was older, but there are children, little baby children that are being sold into slavery for sex. And there are high paying people out there, like you were talking about earlier, that will pay big money for one chance with a virgin, a young child who's never been with anybody. It has to stop. It absolutely has to stop. And so, yeah, if it takes you, if it's hard to watch something like that, I say it's worth it. And I think that we need to be aware.
Yeah, I can't get my next thing to come up. It's internet. It's almost like they don't want you to bring
Well, I think after you play something like that, they get all upset.
Yeah, exactly. So that one's not coming up. That's really frustrating. So let me just finish this article. I think she has to go to the bathroom.
She does not.
Oh.
We've been out several times. She's a liar. You know dogs and cats are liars.
I know, but I think I heard her stomach earlier.
Oh my gosh.
So as Epstein's case keeps making the news and lurks over the American consciousness, an anti-sex trafficking activist and film director of a newly released film on child sex trafficking points out a deep-rooted social problem that starts with the widespread culture of child pornography. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about as we end this. When it comes to pornography, it starts with, hey, you know, just watching just softcore porn, and then it's hardcore porn, and then because pornography doesn't fulfill anybody, they end up watching child porn, and because the child porn doesn't fulfill them, then they want to act upon it. And that's, you have 68 million search inquiries for pornography worldwide a day. And we have a massive pornography problem. And the child sex trafficking is literally just filling the need for those men who have gone from watching regular porn to hardcore porn to child porn. Because it doesn't fulfill, it's not a natural cycle of events. And that's how these aren't necessarily pedophiles, like who are like, you know, randomly just attracted to children. These are people who are programmed into pedophilia by pornography. And slide to turn off. Okay. In his interview, that guy we just showed you on Levin's show, in an interview with Epoch Times, Boyens comes across as someone who has a moral responsibility to tell this story. He wants to make people are aware that things are happening right under our noses in every sector, and that we need to protect our children. Boyens wants people to understand how the problem of child sex trafficking is deeply rooted in the culture of pornography. Supply meets demand, he says. So what is creating the demand for sex with minors? In what they found, over 99% of the time, when we first find somebody who is involved in the crime, that they are also addicted to pornography. And this is really important to him because his own sister was sex trafficked. So at this link between pornography and child sex trafficking is obviously there. And,
and I actually was disappointed that I had to leave to take Holly out during this time, because I don't know if you told them about the person that we know. And without going into any, details as to who it is at all, a person that we loved and respected ended up looking at having tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of child porn on their computer, and it all just started with regular pornography.
And then he started to take pictures of children himself.
In real life. And it's like, it's not really a person that we know very, very well. It's more, a distant acquaintance from another state. So it's not like a personal friend, but I would count them as someone that I loved and respected. And you would think to yourself, and I know this person's wife as well. And this person's wife would never imagine her husband. It's not ingrained in people to do this. It doesn't mean that this person that we know was born as some child pedo, or even was molested as a child himself, or anything like that. Pornography itself,
it rewires the brain,
changes you. I remember watching an interview with Manson once from jail, and he said, every person that is convicted of rape in here will tell you it all started with pornography for them. And then it goes from regular pornography to homosexual pornography to child pornography to violent rape pornography. And then your mind, it's not enough of a high. You have to then start acting it out. That's how it works.
He says that it's fueled by Hollywood. He said, fueled by Hollywood, politicians on the left that are aggressively pursuing a bill to lower the consensual age of sex to 10. 10, why 10? Because it's pre-puberty. Because men who are involved in sex trafficking, that's their ultimate goal, is to have sex with pre-puberty children. It's sick. It's very sick. He said Hollywood and politicians know what's happening, but they aren't doing anything about it. They turn a blind eye because they know many of their friends, of their financial contributors, and their associates are involved. They are involved in pornography. They are involved in child abuse and child molestation. So it's a very sick situation where the culture has lost its morality. And so so there's a movie, and it's called,
and it's yet another movie though, because this isn't the first movie. Hollywood has been consistently coming out with underage pornographic type films for decades.
Don't watch this trailer. I watched the trailer. What the producers of this movie that is out in theaters right now and is rated R. And if you were to see, whatever. I can do this on a incognito window. if you were to see this movie being advertised, you might take your kid there, not even thinking what would it be rated R for.
And that is the thing, because they do misrate movies all the time.
This is not. Here's the thing. I haven't seen any of these movies by Seth Rogen. And you know what? I'm just glad that it just covered it up, because you don't need to know. I'm just going to tell you what I know. This is a child pornography movie where the producers have put children in child porn situations.
That's not a toy.
And it's in mainstream media. Now, we've all heard of the movie American Pie. We all know how dirty it was. I didn't see it, but I know about it. From what I know about that movie and this movie's worse. This is rated R, and they have children saying the F-bomb 365 times. But that's not just it. Their parents looked at the script and said it's just acting. And there's so many things in this film that the kids don't know what they mean. A whole table of sex toys. Kids don't know what they are for. But they're told to give lines like they... Oh, she doesn't have any water.
I thought you got water.
No, I forgot to get water. Maybe that's why she's thirsty.
No, there's water upstairs.
These children are put in sexual situations that are mind-boggling, and anybody, and only people who watch pornography, I believe, would find it funny. There's so many moments where you think to yourself, dear God, where are their parents? And Seth Rogen's like, well, they didn't say the F-bomb on set, and we didn't give him any context for the jokes.
What you mean is they didn't use the words themselves in regular everyday language, but they had to say it for the film.
Do I use the F-bomb here? And to have adults giving children lines to say these things is pornography, and it's child abuse.
It's molestation.
And it's parents.
Because these people,
these
adults, here's the thing. If you as an adult, and I'm going to speak to anybody here watching our show. If you as an adult watch a movie like that, you get off by watching children be perverted.
Yeah.
And that is pedophilia. You are a pedophile.
So these children were innocent of these things. And the definition of pedophilia to me is to watch a child lose their innocence and to
enjoy it.
Okay? They don't even have to be sexually aroused watching it, but you know they are. Mm-hmm. Because the kids are saying sex jokes.
Right.
So they're having children give sex jokes about women, about women's things and sexual things, and they're having a good time with this.
Right.
And I just want you guys to know that all of these people, that they don't have a problem with it. That Twitter did yesterday for a minute. 4 stars. Roger and Ebert gives it 4 stars.
Does anybody even take them seriously anymore anyway?
The kids are good actors. I watched The Thing, and if they had been put in a Sandlot type movie, you would have fallen in love with them.
So, Britt Baza says, Michelle, this type of film has been shown in the UK for at least 15 years. This film suggests the USA has a massive hidden problem like the UK had. It's been hidden by Obama's government for sure. Not just Obama's government, Clinton's government, Bush's government, just society in general, where a lot of these actors that we see as adults were children in this Hollywood. And it's how does homosexuality spread like a disease? Through molestation. How does Hollywood become a breeding ground for this and they all accept it? It's because they all started with it. Okay, some get out, they speak out against it, and then they're never heard from again because, you've now turned on. It's a gang. It's like being in a gang.
So, I can't even. I'm just going to close out everything. I just don't
Donna
want you
says
to
these kids will remember and connect the dots when they get older.
And they know it. And every single line is another perverted line. And when you put those perverted lines into the mouth of a child, you're going straight to hell. they're going. I'm not sending these people to hell. They literally signed their own ticket. They bought their own ticket to hell. Because to come up with this stuff on your own, it's one thing if you fall into it.
Exactly.
But the Bible says that woe to those who cause a little one to sin. It's better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown in the bottom of the sea. So, dear Seth Rogen,
millstone coming your way.
You got a one-way ticket. You know where you're going. And what you did to these children is no better than if you had grabbed a child off the street and sold them to a pimp. You are a sex trafficker. You are a child pornographer, and you belong in jail. And everyone who put this movie out belongs in jail. You're all a bunch of perverts. Hollywood is full of a bunch of pedophile perverts, and you all belong in prison. This is Resistance Chicks signing off.
It's not just a conspiracy theory. It's the
Hollywood
truth.
is full of pedos, and they put out a pedo movie. And if you're laughing at little kids losing their innocence, saying the F-bomb mixed with, like, you can mixing the F-bomb with all this stuff. I watched a 2-minute trailer.
We're coming.
And no child should have to do any or say or be a part of any of that.
Right.
And what happened? Goonies pushed the envelope.
He did. Yeah, Goonies did push the envelope.
There was a couple little perverted jokes and a few F-bombs in the beginning and a few curse words, right? No, there was really only a few.
Stuart the Brit says, remember Jodie Foster's early films were porn as well. Some of them were weird.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah, a child.
All right, so let me read a couple comments here. Al Park says actors live in a bubble of their own ego. Redneck says these folks shouldn't be allowed to have kids. When you do this to a kid, you scar and ruin them for life. Right. Stan Hart says, I think Hollywood has always been like that. Most of the parents are there because they want the money and the fame. Mm-hmm. Kelly says, Michelle, agree, but I saw a shirt via Children Helping Them called Shithole instead of Hollywood. She says, I cried over the children and what they had gone through. Yeah, it's crazy.
I have a song. If we can get Holly to calm down.
There it says more. Or were you looking for the chords? Oh, you want to just sing it with them?
No.
There, you just press more, and there it is.
I was going to look for the chords, if that's what it's called.
Okay.
There's chords here. Let's see. Yeah, I want to sing this song. This came through my head when I was playing. I'll get it. Are you
well, hang on, because you're gonna have to come. We're gonna have to do it like this. We'll have to just turn it sideways over here. Now no one's on camera. Sorry, guys.
No one's on camera. Stay 5. Take 2. Take 2.
Take
Not
5.
5.
Take 5.
2. We gotta turn it.
Yeah, I think this will work.
I don't have my glasses on. I can't read the chords if we turn it.
Well, I can probably pull them up here.
If you turn it, there's like all kinds of junk behind us.
It's right here. You're gonna stand here.
Oh, okay. If we turn it, there's all kinds of stuff behind us. Isn't that funny? Okay. There's Holly Bobby.
This is not practiced.
That's okay. That's not what we want.
Well, it's
Or
their
you
day.
get the camera ahead. You
It's
get the
their
camera.
day.
Let me do it. You get the camera.
Oh, the camera's there. Here.
Okay.
How about this one?
Okay, can you switch me spots?
No, because you're not going to put your
I
neck
need my
in there.
guitar this way. I'm
What?
going to hit you with the guitar.
Are you sure?
I'm going to hit you with the guitar.
Okay.
I have to be over here.
Okay. You're
Sorry.
fine right there.
Okay. Look.
This is very professional.
Yep.
Wow. That is enough for you. Stop.
They're not ruined for life. The kids aren't ruined for life.
God can
No,
heal anything.
the producers are ruined for life, but the kids can be healed. Right, exactly. That's why I was going to the song, so that's what can heal.
Okay.
Your love reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love alone reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. Do you want me to scroll down? Sure. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. I will reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. I will lift my voice, worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Now, if you want to try in our singing voices, we can try.
No, that's
It'll
okay.
get a little high. We can try.
I'll try another key another time. It just needs a few keys.
You try it. Stretches to the sky. Oh, might be too high. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. And I will live.
I just need a different key. It's a pretty low
Well,
key.
if you've never heard Third Day, that dude has the deepest, most rich, beautiful voice for a dude, and to have a couple of girls come in and try to sing a Third Day song is not easy.
Yeah, it's
very, very, very difficult.
You did a good job. You did a really good job. You did a really good job. I really like that. There's some. I think
I missed my calling to be an alto. I like alto. I sing it. I feel confident. Leah always wants to sing all the songs in the soprano.
I just need to be a premium member of E-Chords, so that
That's not a different key.
No, I wanted to take it to a different key.
Oh.
And I thought I just need to be a different member so I can take these into. As a key
You want me
D.
to make you a different member? If you guys are looking for good music, Third Day, just go to YouTube and put in Third Day. Their music is, and especially the stuff they did within the past, like, I would say probably 2005 to 2012. That stuff is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Like the ocean's tides, I will.
It's still tough.
To worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide. I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. And your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean's tide.
So what goes in and what's going to go out? So you know what happens? The ocean washes everything, all the scum and all the disgustingness to the beaches, right? And I really think that right now we're in a time where all that float Sam, as they would call it, all that disgustingness is coming to the beach. And our job now is to pick it up and clean it and toss it in a dumpster, burn it, whatever. But it's better to get the ocean clean. And God is about justice. If you read the Bible, and that's what Patriot Galley was saying, I want justice for those children. They need to be healed. The average lifespan for a child in sex trafficking is 7 years. They die.
Wow.
That guy that we had just seen, I can't pronounce his name. He said that they just found a little girl who was 13 who had been sex trafficked for 6 years. With she had to make between $1,500 a day and $100 a pop. So she had to be sex trafficked 15 times a day for 6 years. Can God heal that young girl? Yes. She is probably 1 year from losing her life. And yeah, as much as God has a really special place for those who are sex trafficking children, He has a really special place for people who have been sex trafficked. There's a woman who was caught in adultery, and she became one of Jesus's main disciples. She was healed. She became Jesus's first evangelist, telling the disciples that she had seen Jesus. So who much is forgiven and much is healed, you're going to be thankful more. Okay? Yeah. So there is hope for these children, that when Jesus comes in and he washes their hearts and he cleans them and he makes it right and he makes it whole and he makes their bodies whole and he makes their minds whole, they have a better, they understand what that healing is more than anybody else. Right. So I'm praying for justice for them. Justice means they get set free. Justice means that those guys get put behind bars, and ultimately justice means we put an end to this. And the Democrats are part of this system. The Democrats want these illegal aliens in here. They want the sex trafficking. They're not doing anything to stop it. They don't even care about it. When was the last time you heard a Democrat talk about sex trafficking? When was the last time you heard about Democrats talk about sex traffickers and human traffickers bringing people over the border? People, kids who aren't theirs. So they don't care. They don't care if you're a relative or not. Oh, adult has a kid. Let him in. Let him stay with that adult. Like, what do you mean let him stay with an adult? That you don't know, 1/3 of them aren't even related. They're being sex trafficked. They're being child slave trafficked. So that's what this has to do with politics, but ultimately with justice, because God hears the cries of those children. And if you and I get out there, and if you and I start preaching the word of God, if you and I start telling everybody and getting this out there, we can bring it into this. Like, seriously, we can stop it.
Amen.
And the guy said that it had increased significantly over the past 10 years, and I think it's because of pornography and because of open borders, right?
Right.
Because those kids, I care about those kids coming over the border. The Democrats don't. And tell your liberal friends that.
You know, I just had a kind of a scary thought, and I know we're ending on a happy note, but if Trump closes those borders and they can't get those children from Mexico, they're coming after the American children, because these people are addicted. Okay, and then they're crazed.
Well, they already do
stop
after
at nothing.
Too.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, they do. Of course they do. But what I mean is, you would see an increase.
Right.
And so it's
child
important.
Kidnappings. And
it's important to bust these gangs and to bust, like, the Espteins of this world, and Trump is doing that.
Exactly. Epstein is the tip of the iceberg on this. And as that guy said, Trump is the #1 president to end sex trafficking ever in history.
He was talking, I think, it felt like he was talking about the borders, but I think that he knows more than what a lot of people, we've covered it on our show a lot. And that is the fact that there have been so many busts on these child sex trafficking rings
they don't want to
since Trump's been in office, and they refuse to talk about it. So we're going to sign off here. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
In on a happy note.
I thought that was happy. Trump's busting down, cracking down on it.
Reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness stretches to the sky. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean side. I will lift my high voice to worship you, my King. I will find my strength in the shadow of your wing. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky.
Okay, remember, guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. If you want to send us your letters, P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio 45150. We will read them on air unless otherwise notified. So we'll see you back here on Sunday, 2 days from now, at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our European and UK news. It's going to be a good show. Britt Baza has been telling me in the chat that he sent us a message that it would seem that Farage, your favorite Britain mine, has taken up the flagship of fighting the Islamification of the UK. That should be very interesting. I can't wait to check that out. So we shall see. All right, you guys. Good night. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and Saturday, and we'll see you Sunday.
I was cold.